settle for less. It's all in your head, how you think you manifest. So get ready to rise, cause we about to be the best. Gotta switch it up, gotta break the old habits. Get your mind right, turn your dreams into habits. No negative vibes, only positive thoughts.
What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy Devin, and today we got a special guest for you. I know all of our guests are special, but this one I'm honestly really excited about. He is a leader. He's a leadership expert. He is a speaker. He is a pastor with over 22 years of experience, really in guiding teams and individuals towards excellence and personal growth. And you already know everything with the Mindset Cafe. We're all about personal development, from your mindset to your, physical fitness to your nutrition. So honestly, that's everything that we're going to be talking about today. So without further ado, I want to welcome Ken Hester to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day.
Devin, what's up, man? I'm excited to join you and have a great conversation today. It's going to be awesome.
Awesome. So let's dive into your story. Where did, like the personal development, where did the leadership, all that kind of stuff come in for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think when we have great people in our lives, they just pull things out of you, right? They're going to pull potential out of you. And I think from an early age, just being involved in sports, soccer, basketball, I was involved in my youth group. I was involved in student development within my high school as well, and had different teachers, different coaches, different mentors, just developing me in different ways, challenging me, pulling potential out of me that I didn't even realize, for 5 or 10 years, right? You just kind of like, it's just there. And then you look back and you go, oh, wow, that's what they were doing. That's why they pushed me a little bit more. That's why they asked me deeper questions. That's why they challenged me to take a different class or to go into a leadership, development kind of environment with other leaders, so I could learn and glean from them. So I feel like it's been a journey now for like 30 years. It's like, wow, okay. From the early ages of teenage life to just continuing to add on that in the college and now professional realm as well.
No, that's so cool. So, I mean, what drew you to leadership, like in leadership development? When did you know that you had those skills? Because some people say that, some leaders are natural, some people are naturally born leaders. And for me, I believe that it's a skill. And yes, some people may be born with more of that skill, just like some people are just naturally talented at basketball, but
Right.
it's developed, right? And so where did you know that you actually had that skill and, really want to start honing in and developing it?
Yeah, I read a book a while back. It's called Talent is Overrated. And it basically had all of this scientific data to support why talent is only it's 10% of everything. What you do, how you spend time, your intentional development plan is really up to you. And I think early on, I would, again, love sports. I was in sports. I actually went to University of North Carolina for sports administration. So I understood that kind of coaching, mentoring, leadership was in me. And then I would look to just develop that beyond and beyond. So I think leaders are also learners. So if you just have an appetite for learning, if you're like, let me grab a book, let me listen to a great podcast with Devin, right? Let me like always be gathering information. I call it the ABCs, right? Always be collecting, right? Always be collecting. And if you're collecting that leadership mindset, if you're collecting just different ways to understand and apply and learn and fail, because I feel like leadership is a lot of failure as well. You're learning what not to do. So, okay, well, let's try that. Let's take a risk. Let's figure that out. And although you can have great insight from books or from conversations or classes or podcasts, for you to actually take the risk, I think that's what leaders do better than anyone else, is they take a risk. And they're not just going to go, okay, well, I'm not going to take that risk because I might fail. They're going to take the risk knowing that it could lead to failure. But even in failure, it's an opportunity to learn and get better.
No, that's so awesome. So, I mean, you learn that you have this skill and you really start, honing in on it, and you understand that, learning is part of the leadership role, right? And then there comes a time when you get into the corporate space with managing franchises, and everything like that. What was that transition point? Where was that opportunity, kind of shift? The reason I'm interested in it too is,
Yeah.
Besides the Mindset Cafe, we actually, me and my business partner actually have a gym, and we actually launched the national franchise and everything like that. So
Amazing.
just curious for you, where was that transition point?
Yeah, I think learning from different models is helpful. So when I was in management in college, I managed Applebee's. I managed a sports bar and cafe as well that had multiple franchises. So I was learning from them, like, what did you do to scale? What did you do to add to your workforce? What did you do to limit that workforce? What specific areas did you do to inventory, right? What was working, what was not, using data to make decisions rather than feelings making decisions, right? You guys could be like, all right, great. Yes, we absolutely want to launch another franchise. We absolutely want to do that. But do we have the leadership in place to lead that franchise? Not just a manager, a leader. And managers are different than leaders. Managers will take what a leader says and apply it, but leaders will take what someone says and say, I got to make that better. So managers a lot of times will just kind of take their marching orders and go, but leaders will say, all right, I'm going to take that and I'm going to take action. I'm going to make it better. I'm going to build on what you said to make this successful. So I think when I've learned about franchises and about leading multiple organizations that have the same mindset, they can be, I use this language a lot, and they are identifiable but not identical. So you can walk into your gym anywhere, 8 gyms, 10 gyms, whatever it is, and you're going to have probably similar equipment, but you're going to have the same brand. You're going to have the same color. You're going to have the same customer experience. You're going to have the same sign up. You're going to have the same follow up, right? But you're going to have different trainers. You're probably, based on where they are, you're going to have different equipment. So you might have more cardio equipment over here, but you might more have strength equipment at a different location because that's your clientele. That doesn't mean that you're a different organization. That means you're still identifiable as that organization, but the leader within it knows what's best for the community that they're trying to reach. So as you empower them and you're saying, great, I'm empowering you now as a leader, as that franchise manager or franchise operator, I want you to make the decision that is best to move that part of our organization forward.
No, I mean, that is so powerful too, because like some people want to become managers, and not every manager is a good leader, right? And just because you have the role doesn't, or the title doesn't make you a leader, right? It just, and so how, I mean, because you kind of explained, if you want to become a leader, like what the steps are different between a leader and a manager, but how, as a, let's say, business owner, or how as a leader, can you tell if someone is a manager or a leader, below you, if you're trying to bring someone up?
Yeah, sure. I think a lot of things you're doing is it is that evaluation process. I think sometimes we try to put someone in a leadership role because we need that role filled rather than putting the right person in the role. Sometimes you need to leave that vacant. It might be a little bit more on your plate because now you've got 2 roles that you've got to manage. Yeah, okay, well, I just need to put a leader in. And if you feel like you're just putting a leader or a manager in place that isn't ready but fills the role, that's like a band-aid on a bullet hole, right? You go, okay, I don't see the bullet hole anymore, but that doesn't mean that it's fixed, or that doesn't mean that it's sewn up. That doesn't mean that it's healing, right? So you're going to have that same issue 2 months from now, 6 months from now, because now that person that you put into place wasn't a leader, and they're going to step away, or you're going to have to fire them because 3 other people have quit since then,
Yeah. No, I love that. Honestly, I love analogies, and that's the first time I've ever heard Band-Aid on a bullet hole. That was awesome. So you went into managing corporate franchises, you're building up leadership teams, and you're really a student of the game of leadership, right? And you're learning from how different corporations do it, and basically taking the key components and understanding all that for yourself.
Mhm.
you know you've coached high school basketball. I can see the basketballs behind you and everything. That's obviously that's a big part of everything.
Yeah.
But then there's a time where you go into ministry, right? And so
Hmm.
what was that? What was that driver? What was that, calling to go that route instead of staying in the corporate world or staying in the coaching world? What was I mean, you kind of hit all three of the realms of
Yeah.
leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is calling, right? What I want to do is I want to add value anywhere I go. But what I really felt like was a calling in my life was to add value to the church. I see a lot of times businesses and organizations run better than the church, and I go, "Well, why is that? I don't, I shouldn't have a better experience at Starbucks or at my gym or at my favorite restaurant than I do at my church. What's the disconnect? And what I realized is the disconnect is leadership development and that gap that is there. Where as nonprofits, and I work with other nonprofits as well, the issue that they have mostly is what I just mentioned with management, right? Management and leaders. They're not leaders. You don't put them in leadership. You put them in leadership positions, but they're really just volunteers. And you say, all right, it takes me a long time to develop a leader. I have to I have to invest. There's time. There is, it's really just an ongoing thing. There's not like, I can send you to a 6-week class and you're going to be a leader. Like, no, that's not it. There's proximity. The closer that you are to someone, the more that they understand your style of leadership as well. So you've got to be able to say, what is your style of leadership? What is the culture? What am I trying to replicate? Because leaders really should be a replication of the leadership that is around them or that is above them. And if it's going in different directions, then it's not going to work. It's not going to work for either team. And so what I try to bring into the church space and nonprofit space right now is that corporate mindset of there are line items. I just got back from a leadership development institute, and a group from the LA Dodgers was there, a group from Pixar was there, a group from Disney was there, and because they've all invested into leadership development on their teams, right? I, I was the only one there representing kind of like a church or a nonprofit, you know. So I'll go, well, and I'm in a room of 40 or 50 leaders, and I say, well, the problem is that we say that leadership is valuable, but we don't actually invest into that leadership being valuable. So that's what I'd probably challenge people that are out there, even in for-profit organizations. You're like, why don't I have better managers? Why don't I have this? Why don't I have that? Well, how are you investing into that leadership? Are you going to conferences together? Are you doing continuing education? Or what are even if it's just listening to podcasts or reading books, are y'all doing that together and doing exercises to help support leadership development? Because it doesn't happen overnight. It does not, oh, I'm a leader today. Like, no, you might have leadership traits, but you've got to really hone those skills. You've got to develop those skills, as you mentioned before, and you've got to be very intentional about your own personal development, but also the development of those around you. So if I'm not leading, if I'm not learning, if I'm not going to, I'm currently taking a online class at Cornell for leadership development. You go, okay, I got to have different experiences, different insights, different learning tools that I can contextualize to my place. I'm not okay, great. Well, I'm not going to do everything that Cornell says. I'm not going to do everything that this other institute said. I'm not going to do everything that Disney said or that whatever. Like, are they great institutions? For sure. Do they have great leadership, great culture, great understanding of systems and processes? 100%. But I've got to contextualize that into my framework the same way that you would. If I was going to coach you and meet with your group, I would say, what are your goals? What are your values? Where do you want to be? What do you want to accomplish? Then what leadership do we need to take and what leadership gaps are there in getting to that point.
No, definitely. And I love that because you saying that, like, I'm so big on that too, is where, leadership, it's like you could go to, let's say, Cornell, and you can go to the summit and you can go to these things and you learn one thing of it, right? One aspect, one perspective of leadership or of problem solving, whatever the case may be. And essentially that's one tool you get to put in your tool belt. But imagine if you had to work for the rest of your life and you only had a Phillips screwdriver, right?
Right.
That doesn't work for everything.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like that's the same thing with how you said, go into a different school, getting different perspective, getting a different way to contextualize it and, be able to convey that, because sometimes, like that analogy you gave might resonate with me, of the bullet hole and Band-Aid, but it might not, click with someone else.
Right.
Right. So I love that so much. And I do want to rewind real quick, because you mentioned a word real quick, and it was really interesting because the word culture and building a culture within both a business and a ministry, or within a church, right? They are still one and the same, because culture, community, tribe, whatever you want to add the word, right? It's there. So how do you create a culture like where a team can thrive, or where a team can really just grow instead of just be or just function?
Yeah, it really starts with your core set of values. What do you value, right? You mentioned that as we started the podcast, right? Like, okay, we're talking about health, we're talking about leadership, we're talking about good eating, we're talking about good exercise. Like, these are the things that we talk about to make sure that this is what we value. Your listeners value a certain set of things. That's why they continue to listen. They go, I'm going to continue to get that, and I know I can go there for that. And so whatever your values are will help drive your decisions. So when you're creating a culture, you've got to say, what are the values of our culture? They drive the decisions that we're making, and then that reinforces the culture, right? So it's easier to hire that way. It's easier to retain people that way, because you go, oh, well, do your values match up with our values? Now, the problem is that a lot of organizations have a strong set of values, but people don't. Like, oh, I love your values, so I'm gonna join your organization because you've got great values. So what I would challenge you and the people listening today is, if whatever part of the organization that you play, do my personal values match up with the organization that I'm a part of? Because if they don't, that's probably where your frustration lies. The organization is making decisions based on the values that they founded their organization on. And if your personal values do not match that, then your culture will not match that. Then you will be frustrated in your role and in your job, and you go, well, maybe I just need to work in a different role, or maybe I need to do this or that. No, your values and the decisions that are being made at a higher level than yours are based on a value set that doesn't match with your personal values. So if you value health, but you work at a fast food restaurant, you're probably going to be frustrated, right? Like, okay, cool. Like, but if you're like, okay, I don't value working out at all. Well, I'm no offense to anybody out there that might be a 500-pound trainer, but I'm not going to go to them for training, right? Or like, that's not really because it clearly your values don't match what you're selling. Right. So your personal values have to match your organizational values, which then is an overlap of culture. Make sense?
No, definitely. And I mean, if you're a 500-pound trainer, take your own advice. I will say that I'll be the aggressive one for you, Ken.
Right. Yeah.
Like being in the industry, like this is the one thing that drives me nuts, is because even in your space, like with ministry and stuff like that, like people can preach the word and do so, but it's what separates the two of, a great,
Correct.
Minister and a, decent one that just knows how to recite the word.
Right.
Same thing with, training. It's like some people get a certification, they go to school and they're telling their clients do A, and then they're doing B. Like I've seen trainers, at other gyms, like smoking cigarettes in the parking lot. And I was like, do you guys not know that just because you're outside the door doesn't mean the members don't see you
Right.
once, it's like, come on.
Yeah.
So, just a little side tangent, but
Yeah, no doubt.
um,
100%. That is like live, and I think that's a problem with churches as well. Is like even the values that are said, right? They might be said values, but they're not practiced values. And
mhm,
and when those things don't match up, that's why people leave churches. That's why people leave, it's not because the pastor was bad or because the worship was bad or because the people are bad. It's because what you said your values are, you are not supporting those values in action.
mhm,
And
exactly.
and it's like I'll go, oh, your value is a great, at Chick-fil-A or whatever it is like the best chicken sandwich. Okay, well, if I go to Chick-fil-A and I order a chicken sandwich, they go, we're out of chicken. Well, then your decision your decisions did not match with your values. I've never gone to a Chick-fil-A and then been out of chicken. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
every decision they're making is based on the value of we will have the best chicken sandwich.
I mean, Chick-fil-A is actually a good example of like a culture and sticking to their core values. Like the
Right.
craziest thing as a restaurant, especially as a fast food restaurant,
Hmm.
right? To be closed on Sundays because the founder, said that's family day, and till today,
Right.
that is still a thing. Like that blows my mind, and it's like that's a huge example of culture. Or even Starbucks. I read the book. It's not about the coffee. It was about
Mm-hmm.
the CEO and about the
Mm-hmm.
whole foundation. And honestly, like I'm not a huge coffee person, but like I definitely
Right.
grew to
Yeah,
like
me
the whole
neither.
culture
Yeah.
of Starbucks. And I think that it really comes down, like you're saying, to self-awareness, right? You have to be
Mhm.
aware of self to be effective, be an effective leader, because you need to place yourself in the right place, right?
Right.
And instead of just filling someone's role, like you were saying, almost on the flip side, instead of just becoming a manager over here just because it's better than not doing anything,
Mhm.
it's like sometimes you also need to know your worth in
Yeah.
everything as well, right? um Now, how can leaders, and I know we kind of briefly touched on this in terms of the business owner,
Mhm.
right? But how can leaders balance their personal growth while still focusing on serving their team?
Hmm. That's a great question. I think having a personal development plan, again, I think we have organizational plans or business plans or anything, but when it comes to our personal life, we don't have a personal development plan. What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to accomplish in your finances? What do you want to accomplish in your family? What do you want to accomplish physically? What do you want to accomplish in your faith? Right? Like, whatever those things are, lay out what your personal development plan is, what your action steps are for that. And then you'll be able to be more successful in your leadership or management role. Because if I'm not challenging myself, then I don't set a good example for anybody else, right? But
Mhm.
people also want to they're inspired by leaders and they want to follow leaders that they want to be like, right?
Right.
So if my finances are in order and somebody comes to me and they're like, hey, I'm going through a rough time, I'm not sure, whenever, I'm like, hey man, what do you need? You need $300, $500, what do you need? And they're like, oh yeah, it could really help me out if I did. Okay, here you go, here's $500. And they're like, what? I mean, it's in their brain, that is like the most ridiculous thing that they've ever heard of. And I'm going, I've managed my finances to a place where I can be generous and it doesn't bother me. And so
Right.
now they're going to come to me for financial advice. Right.
Mhm.
You go, wait. So how did you get to the place where you didn't have to do that? Okay, great. Or if I'm working out, I had a guy text me today. He's like, hey man, um, where where are you working out? And I'm not talked to him about working out ever, but he can see that's a value, right? It's
Right.
like, okay, cool. Yeah. Let me see if I can get you a guest pass or whatever it is. Right.
Mhm.
So those types of things. I talked to another guy earlier in the week and he was like, he's looking for a job and he's trying to find, he called me, not because I can get him a job, but because he knows that I figured out what my values were to be in the right lane to be successful. She's like, how did you figure that out? Because I'm applying everywhere. And I said, stop applying everywhere. I said, apply for only the things that you want to do, only the things that match up with your values. Only the organizations that you want to be a part of. Man, I never
Mm.
thought about that. Yeah, because you're going to bring more passion to that interview because you want to be a part of that organization. Like subliminally, subconsciously, however you want to talk about it. Like when you go into an interview that you just applied to randomly on Indeed or whatever, they're going to feel that,
Mhm.
right? But if you go, no, man, I absolutely these are organization values. They match up with my values. I feel like I can bring A, B, C, X, Y, Z to the organization and help you move forward in this way. 100%, you're at the top of the list now.
Mm.
And I think that if people can figure out again how they're leading themselves, it will help them understand how they lead others.
Oh, I love that. And I want to even add to what you're saying too, is like with the whole job thing with Indeed, right? In knowing what companies you line up with and everything like that. Like I 100% agree with what you just said. And I want to get your take on this because I feel that sometimes, let's say you're looking for a man, just for terms, manager position, right?
Mhm.
Because you've been a manager in the past, you want to be a manager right now,
Mhm.
but you really want to work for this company because you align with their core values and everything like that, and you're going to be with them for the long haul.
Yep.
My opinion is sometimes it's better to just get in and prove
Yes.
your worth than demand your worth from the get-go, because if you do have the skills, it will show. And I promise you, as a business owner, like
Mhm.
if someone says they're a manager and they come on and then all of a sudden they're not, like they're probably gonna be let go fairly quick. But
Right.
if someone says they're a manager but they're willing to come in at any position, they're probably gonna get that position fairly quick if they actually demonstrate those skills.
Yep. 100% agree with you. Get your foot in the door. If if you know that you align with an organization, well, it doesn't pay me that much or that. Fine. Like hustle, grind, figure it out. Like go Instacart or do whatever you got to do. But if you know that you want to be in there for the long haul, it's like with any other relationship. Like I'm not going to put a ring on it after the first date, right? Like, okay, like that's probably not a smart decision, you know? So it's like, well, I don't understand why they didn't just make me the CEO. Like, well, I don't even know you. Like, I'm not going to
Yeah.
make you, I'm not put you in after an hour conversation. I'm not just going to put you in a leadership role over people that have been at my organization for a year, 2 years, 3 years. Like, they, I, I'm going to make sure, and they may not have the leadership. There's kind of two lanes to that. One would be, how are you developing the people that are already in your organization for
Mhm.
a role that you need to fill in management? Rather than trying to find a management role. There should be somebody, if you're a great leader and you're developing people around you and you have a mindset of leadership, then there should be a plethora of people that when that job opens, I already know these 3 people, I'm going to ask them to apply for this role. Right.
Yep.
Um, so kind of take a deep look at yourself. But on the other side of it, if you are in a management position and you say, I'm willing to be a part of anything here, because everything aligns with who I am. And I will prove to you that I'm a leader regardless of my title. That right there, that statement, I'm a leader regardless of my title, will get you in leadership faster than you can blink.
That was actually, it's funny you just mentioned that. I was actually going to ask that correlation, because some people think that they need to have a title to be a leader.
Hmm.
And just, for us, like even at my gym and with the franchise, like I don't hire managers. You
Mhm.
get management, become a manager through merit. I don't care if you've been
Yep.
here for 5 years, 1 year, 6 months. The best person for the job gets the job,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But we do it all internally. But now someone that isn't a manager, can they be a leader? And if you want to be a manager, should you start leading now, essentially?
Yes. 100%. Like lead yourself, lead the people around you, lead up. Right? Oh, my manager, people say this all the time. Well, my supervisor doesn't do this or my manager doesn't do that. Okay. Well, do it for them.
Mhm.
Like nothing's stopping you from leading at the level, and nothing says that they're going to be in that role forever. Nothing says that they're going to be in your role forever. But you can control what you can control. Don't
Mm.
we worry too much about the things that we can't control. Worry about what you can control. And I can control my actions. I can control, well, my manager wasn't even here. They didn't even open the doors. I'm not going to get there early because they don't get there early. That's a reflection of you, not a reflection of them.
Yep.
Right. So I'm going to be here early. I'm going to walk. And if I got to stand outside, I'm going to stand outside. But my manager, somebody's going to know. The security camera is going to pick it up. Right. And it's like, hey, why is Ken always there 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes before? You're showing leadership skills and values that go far beyond your role. And if you're staying after to clean up, if you're doing whatever it is, think of yourself as part of the team. How can you be the best teammate? And a team that what I love about sports as well is that there really are no leadership positions, right? But there are, when you look at, I'm a big basketball fan, obviously coach basketball and all that. So I was like, all right, well, there are 2 guards, typically 2 forwards and a center. There's a multiple, ways you can split that up, but ultimately that's your traditional set. Is leader on any of those titles? No.
Right.
But they self-determine who the leaders are on the floor. And those leaders are based upon the actions that they take, not on the words that they say, or not on a C being on their jersey or whatever it is. It's like, no, they're a leader because of the actions that they take. And it's not about the role that they play their role. They play their role really well, but they lead because of the actions that they take.
No, that is so true. Now, I do want to ask, as a pastor, right, and everything, and having the ministry and everything, you're still a leader, and it's a different type of leadership in a sense than business, but not by much, right? And so how do you integrate, or how would you recommend integrating, I guess not recommending it if you're not religious, but how do you integrate faith-based principles into leadership without alienating diverse teams, or even for yourself, with the ministry? How do you convey leadership with faith-based principles?
Yeah. Again, a lot of it overlaps, right? So you don't have to say that you learned it in this one by reading scripture or by doing this or by doing that. But you go, hey, I was reading this leadership book on proximity, and what it showed me is that the leader spent more time with his highest level management or his highest level leaders than anyone else. And the amount of time that he spent with them was very intentional. He challenged them. He restructured them. He didn't actually give them titles and told them that titles weren't important. He told them that it was more about the actions that they took than the titles that they had. And so all the things that I just talked about for the last 20 minutes with you were all faith-based principles based on Jesus and his disciples. Jesus in proximity had those 12 guys closest to him for 3 years, 24/7, and taught them what they needed to do, what they needed not to do, even told them, it doesn't matter if you're at my right hand. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter what your title is. It doesn't matter what this is. What matters is the goal. What matters is where we're going. What matters is how you act. What matters is how you bring others along with you. And all of that, although is based out of a scripture and based out of faith, completely applies to everything in leadership and management and in any organization.
What's crazy is I heard something in it. I'm not saying it's true or not true, right? Because I don't know, but like you were saying with your example, someone had mentioned that majority of leadership and majority of these life principles that we read in these other books, and it has a different context or different, it's a Starbucks book or whatever the case, right?
Right.
A lot of it is based off of scripture and stuff, and it's just regurgitated and reworded so that, again, like you were saying, a lot of the examples you mentioned were all faith-based, but you didn't have to put the name Jesus. You didn't have to put disciples. You didn't have to. So eliminating or changing the words doesn't change the core value and the core message that it conveys, but how, kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, like great, pastors or great ministers versus, okay ones. It's like the okay ones need to use those words to let people know that they have something to say, that it's important.
Right.
The ones that are great can switch it up and change up like you've done thus far, and almost like give you that, like, what's it called when you're teaching someone and they don't know that you're teaching them? Reverse psychology,
Right. Yes. Yeah.
in a way. And so I think that is so interesting too, because the scripture and everything is, there's so many messages in there that it really makes you think. It's like, man, I could just get all of the lessons if I just read the book, and
Right.
internalize it and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on
Well,
that?
I think too, it's like, what made Jesus so great is his ability to connect with everyday people. So the parables that he told, the stories that he told, were very real life examples, right? They were to the shepherds, they were to the tax collectors, they were to the fishermen, they were to the people of that time and era and culture. He wasn't confusing them with all of this, hoopla, or, big words, or things that people didn't understand. He was like, let me just tell you how it is and how this applies to your life. So if you want to go deeper, then go deeper. But I need you to start at a level where you can start at. And I think that, again, that applies to every organization. Have your onboarding start with what they can handle, right? Like, what can
Yes.
a new employee handle? Great. Don't expect them to be incredible on their third day. They're going to need some runway. They're going to need some time to take off. They're going to need some time for success. They're going to need some time to fail. And that's okay. And if you can come alongside them and encourage them along the way, then that will help them be more successful in the long term. But yeah, I think that those leadership principles, uh, again, you read John Maxwell, all of that is, his 87 books that he's written are all leadership principles, primarily based in scripture, right? I just read a 9-figure mindset, and Brandon was talking about a ton of the things that he learned are based off of his faith principles and based off of even John Maxwell's books. And so I'm like, oh, okay. Like, these are things that you don't have to be so upfront with it that it turns people off. You don't have to be like, okay, well, found in Luke 27, it says the leadership, da 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 da. Like, no, just talk to people like people, right?
Yep.
And if they want to ask, where did you learn that? Tell me a little bit more about that. You can, as you build a relationship with them, as you build community with them, as you connect with them, you'll know when the right time is and when the wrong time is to lean in and share those ultimately faith value principles that you've built in your own life.
No, I love that. And it's the crazy thing is I'm actually reading the 9-figure mindset right now. So when you said that,
so you get it. You totally understand.
Yeah. Right. When you said that, I was like, it can't be the same one. And then I was like, yeah, it's the same one. That is crazy. So I like to wrap up with one question, and this question, I know you didn't get it before because I want what first comes to mind, the authentic answer. Right. So on Ken's legacy wall, mind you, this is not a tombstone. This is your legacy wall, right? I have to say that because there's been a handful of times that people start off with loving father, and it's like, hold on, it's not supposed to be dark. Let's rewind that.
Yep.
So on your legacy wall, what is the one lasting message that you've learned through your life's journey, right? Your experiences, the things that you've been taught, things you've read, that you would leave for the up and coming generations?
I would probably say invest in people, because that investment never returns void.
I like that. That was the first. Can you explain it a little bit? I mean, I get it. I love
for
that.
sure. Yeah. I mean, and when I say invest in people, because you have to include yourself in that investment process, right? So there's a ton of things that you can invest in. You can invest in, obviously, your health, your finances. You can invest in stock. You can invest in businesses. You can invest in all of things. But the more that you invest in yourself, the more return that you will get. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to invest. I'm going to make sure that I've got, again, a good health plan, a good understanding of my family values, a good faith perspective, a good financial plan. Like I'm going to invest into making myself better in all of these ways. And instead of investing into things that don't return anything for you, you're like, oh well, I want to get those new headphones, or I want to get that new car, or I want to get that new. It's not that you can't have those things, but if you invest in the right things, then those other things will come to you automatically, right? So if
Mhm.
I get my finances right, if I get my budget right, if I pay off my debt, if I don't get in over my head, if I live under my means, if I like things like, that you feel like everybody should know, but it's like, man, can you live on 80%? Can you save 10%? Can you give away 10%? If you live like that, that is a financial principle that I mean, even, millionaires, billionaires, whatever, they'll go, I can live on 20% and I can give away. And now I don't have to pay taxes because I'm giving away 50% of my income. Wait, what? How do you get there? Well, it starts in small increments, right?
Mhm.
So then you can start adjusting those percentages over time. Yeah, okay, great. If I did 80, maybe I could do 79. Maybe I do 78. And if you do that over a 30-year time frame, well, now you're living off of 40% and you're giving
Mhm.
away and you're saving and you're investing. But all of that means all that has to start with, I'm going to invest in understanding my financial future better. So I'm going to read that investment book. I'm going to listen to that investment podcast. I'm going to sit down with an investment broker. I'm going to get somebody mentoring in my life that is 30 years ahead of me, so I know what they're doing and they can speak into it. So I'm just using finances as one example of that, but you can apply it to all of the different examples and say, if I invest into me, then and people around me, then I know that I will always get a return on that investment.
No, I love that. Where can people connect with you and learn about what you have going on?
Yeah, LinkedIn is always a great place. I love just a platform of business leaders. It's just a different understanding, right? Like
Mhm.
this is what we're growing businesses together. We're investing into that community in that way. So I love LinkedIn, and then Instagram is more on the personal side, right? You'll see more about
Mhm.
my family. You'll see about more of my interests. But I'll respond either way. Direct messages in either of those platforms, and would love to continue a conversation with anybody that wants to have one.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to hop on. And guys, make sure that if you're listening, if you got anything out of this, which I know if you say you didn't, you are lying because even I did, right? And it's one of those things that make sure you guys share this with your circle. This is the easiest way to not help us out, but help your circle out, right? This is an investment into your circle by giving them some knowledge to help them grow. And in return, it helps your entire circle grow, which lifts you up as well in your investment into them. So, with that being said, make sure you guys share this episode with a friend. Ken, again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day.
Thanks, Devin. It was great. Love the conversation, man.
We'll definitely keep in touch soon.
Yeah.
No negative vibes, only positive thoughts. Just in the game of life, mindset causes stress. Got my mind on the prize, I can't be distracted. I stay on my grind, no time to be slacking. I hustle harder, I go against